All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to be talking about Nikola Tesla, and at the very end of this, you guys are going to be looking up a video on your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So here's the warm-up picture. Now I know this one looks a little bit different than the one on your packet, but it's basically the same picture. Okay, the first question asks you to analyze the picture and explain to me what's going on here, what's happening. Okay. The second question asks you if some scientist person asks you, hey, would you know, be my little guinea pig, my test subject, try out my product, drink it, eat it, wear it, try it out. Again, you don't know what it's for. They're just asking you to do it. Would you do it and why? Okay. Now, I've had some students in class ask me if this is photoshopped or anything like that. No, this is not photoshopped. What you see there is electricity coming out, and the guy, Tesla, is just sitting down next to it reading a book. That is true. Okay, it's not fake. Okay, so pause the video, write your response, okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So Nikola Tesla was born on July 10th, 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia. Now, the legend has it that he was born at the stroke of midnight on July 10th, and it was during this huge, large thunderstorm. You know, um, is that true? We don't know for a fact that he was born at exactly the stroke of midnight. We do know that there was a thunderstorm going over Smiljan, Croatia on July 10th. Now, was it the biggest one they've had in like years and centuries and so that? We don't know. It's just that's what the legend has it. Was there a thunderstorm? Yeah. Was it the biggest? I don't know. Thing is, Tesla's brother died when he was 7 years old, and Tesla, up until the day he died, he would say, hey, I see my brother. My brother's right over there. He's either like sitting down, leaning up against a wall, things like that. And it wasn't like every day he saw him. It was just every so often he would just see him and be like, oh man, I just saw my brother right now. You know, he was sitting right over there. Things like that. Now, Tesla, growing up, he was a prodigy. He was very smart, especially when it comes to things with electricity. At 26, he sketched that picture you see at the bottom there. That is a brushless AC motor, okay? And at a young age, to create something like that, pretty impressive. So he did go to school, right? He went to study math and physics at the Technical University of Graz and philosophy at the University of Prague, okay? Now, he needed a job. And while he was in Paris, he went to work for the company of a man he really admired, which was Thomas Edison. All right. So he's there at this power plant fixing direct current power plant stations, their transformers, whatever needed to be fixed, he could do it. Okay. And while other people had struggled to figure out these problems, he figured them out like that, no problem. Okay. Now, the guy who worked, or I should say, owned the Paris plant, he and Edison were actually good friends. Edison was one of those people like if you weren't at the same level as him in intellect and things like that, he kind of looked down on you. But this guy and Edison were basically even, and Edison did respect them. So one day Tesla shows up with the letter, and he goes to Edison's workshop and says, "Hi, my name is Nikola Tesla. Uh, I have this letter for you." Edison opens the letter, and it's from his friend. It says, "Dear Edison, I know two great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Now, Edison's like, wow, this guy is saying he's that good. He must be that good. So he tells him, okay, um, it's okay. So what do you want? And Tesla's like, well, I would like to work for you. Now, Edison probably more likely would say no to anybody else, but because he had this letter, he's like, okay, kid, come on in. Let's see what you got. So Edison takes him in. Now, after working there for a year, Edison's actually really impressed with Tesla for his diligence and his ingenuity. I mean, he could basically give him a box of scrap metal and wires and things like that and say, here, build something with this. And Tesla could build something with that. You know, thing is, Tesla really, really tried his hardest to convince uh, Edison that DC power, which is direct current, is not as good as AC, which is alternating current. And Edison's like, no, 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 no. See, kid, you don't understand. You don't get it. You know, you haven't been around that long. DC power is better. AC power is so complicated. It's just so it's not safe. You know, and I don't know if you've ever had an argument with your parents and you're trying to tell them we should really do this. We should in your soul that this is the right thing to do, and yet they don't listen to you. They're kind of like, okay, all right, son, okay, yeah, whatever, okay, yeah, sure, uh-huh. They're just brushing you off. That's basically how Tesla feels towards Edison. He feels like he's being brushed off. Okay. Now, later on, there's a problem. Edison cannot figure out this problem for this DC dynamos, which is a device that you put in the transformers. Thing is, he goes to Tesla, says, hey, I need help with this. I can't figure this out. I'll give you $50,000 if you can solve this. Tesla's like, oh, 50,000, heck yeah. So he pushes everything to the side and focuses on this one problem, and he's working day and night and day, um, to figure it out, and he does. He actually does. He does something that Edison couldn't do, and he gives it to Edison saying, here it is, better and improved. Where's my money? Edison laughs at him and says, Tesla, don't you understand American humor? And Tesla's like, what do you mean? And he goes, I'm not going to pay you $50,000. I was just joking around. He goes, but thank you for this DC dynamos. So he didn't pay Tesla. He took the DC dynamo, and here's the like the icing on the cake. When it comes to credit, who created the new improved DC dynamos, Edison didn't even give Tesla credit for it. It's basically Edison's workshop who created it. That's who gets the credit. So this was a straw that broke the camel's back, and Tesla's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with you. You know, there's an old saying, you shouldn't meet your heroes. This is one of those examples, and Tesla leaves. So in the late 1870s, electricity comes to New York. All right, and there's a power station in Lower Manhattan. Problem was the wiring was not that great. And a lot of times kids be climbing up the poles, things like that, and then they touch the exposed wire and bzz, they get shocked. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Jurassic Park, the little boy's on the electric fence, and when the electricity turned on, he just like bzz, just gets shot off. Same thing would happen to these kids. They'd get zapped and shocked and fall. Even cats would be crawling up and all of a sudden, just get electrocuted and, fluffy and fluffy no more, type of thing. Now, the people in Brooklyn, there's this thing called the trolley car. So if you look at that picture right there, if you've ever been to San Francisco, the trolley car uh, is still around and functions there. But in Brooklyn, the trolley cars were going pretty fast and they ran on the electric line. So lightning would just jump off of it, just as the trolley car was going through. people in Brooklyn had to get out of the way of the trolley car and the electricity, so they got pretty good at dodging. So when the Brooklyn uh, city got their own baseball team, they're like, okay, what do we name this team? They're like, well, nothing's better to describe our people than the Dodgers, because they dodged the trolley train, they dodged the electricity coming off of it. Perfect, perfect. So that's what they called it, the Brooklyn Dodgers. And in 1955, they moved over to LA, and then they kept the name, the LA Dodgers. Okay. Now, Tesla wants to be independent. And now that he's out of the reins of Edison, he has opportunity. And he wants to go on lectures and wants to prove that AC power is safer and better. And Edison finds out that Tesla's going to do this, and he wants to squash him in any which way. So here's your first question. Do you think if Edison would have paid Tesla that 50,000, that Tesla would have gone off on his own still, or do you think he would have tried to stay in Edison's workshop and try to persuade him to go with AC power? What do you think? If he had gotten the money, do you think he would have went off on his own, or do you think he would still stayed with Edison and try to convince him? What do you think? All right. So pause the video, write your responses because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So Edison is financially supported by this man named J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan, he has a company in investment banking that is still around to this day. J.P. Morgan was honestly one of the richest men in our country. The guy had so much money he bailed out the government twice. Yeah, the government needed money, and he goes, "How much you need? 60 million. Okay, I can give it to you in 2 days." That type of stuff. Tesla was financially supported by this guy named George Westinghouse, who he too was an inventor and heard and saw what Tesla was doing. Was like, wow, this guy's amazing. I'm going to help you out. So this started the battle of the currents. AC versus DC. Whose is better? Now Tesla would go out in lectures, and he'd have those, like you saw the picture on the warm up. Those are the Tesla coils. He would have them out on stage, one on the left, one on the right, and he would like reach out, and electricity would come and touch his hand, and he reach his other hand out to the other one, and electricity would reach his hand, and people were scared, like, oh my god, he's being electrocuted, oh my god, and he'd be like, look at, I'm safe, look at me, I'm fine. If you think this is a trick, please, somebody from the audience, come up. You know, a lot of time people were really, really scared, like, oh, heck no, I'm not going to touch electricity. Are you crazy? And some people would. Some people would come up and he'd tell them, hey, reach your hand out here, reach your hand out there. And do you feel anything? Are you okay? You feel good? Yeah, this feels weird though. Oh my God. People would be just like, oh my God, it's so amazing. He would demonstrate like reaching out with one hand for electricity to hit his hand, and then he'd have a light bulb in his other hand. And he was showing the people, like, look, this electricity is running through me and powering up this light bulb. You don't need to connect it to anything. It's wireless. Even in the 1880s, he's talking about wireless. Now, in 1887, he files for his patents for his generators, his transformers, transmission line, motor, all that stuff, because he's kind of like, hey, I need to get this down, or else Edison might try to steal it. Now, Edison has a trick up his sleeve. He hears that the government's going to kill this guy named William Kemmler, right, on August 6, 1890. Edison basically tells the government, hey, we should try something else instead of hanging people. Let's electrocute them. And they're like, okay. So he designs a chair to be electrocuted, all the device things to it. Kimmler sat down. They put a wet sponge on his head. They put the little tray thing on top of his head. They put these 6 electrodes on his back. Okay. They tied him down, strapped him down, and then they turned on the machine. 700 volts. Look at the key word is volts for 17 seconds. So Kimmler's sitting there. Zzz. People said they could smell like burned flesh and burned clothing, and then they stop. Yeah, his head is down. Doctor comes, checks him. Yep, he's dead. People start to be like, okay, well, hey, he's dead, and then all of a sudden, Kimmler like is back alive, and the people who are in charge are like, crank up the voltage and hold down that button. So they cranked it up to 1030 volts and they held down the power for 2 minutes. Now smoke's popping out of his head, and people are like, oh my God, the smell, the stench, and things like that, right? When they do the autopsy on Kimmler's body, they find that those 6 electrodes burned not only through the clothing, but his skin, the fat, the muscle, all the way to his spine, and it burned that too. So those 6 electrodes burned right through him. Now, did he feel it? We don't know. We don't know. It's not like he could be like, hey, I can feel that. It hurts. He couldn't talk. Again, this 1000 volts is going right through him. All right, so here's question number 2. Do you think anyone, even a convicted killer, because he was convicted, he did do it, without a shadow of a doubt, he did kill his wife and stuff like that. Do you think anyone deserves to die like that? What do you think? You tell me. Okay? So, write your response. Tell me yes or no and why, or, things like that. But pause the video, write your response, okay? Because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. Now, for the next questions, it says, how does DC and AC, how do they differ? How do they work? You can either write the first 2 bullet points or what it says in the pictures with the batteries and the light bulb, okay? So DC has lower voltage and would need a power plant every mile or so, because other than that, the power can't stretch that far. AC, however, has more voltage and a power plant could cover a large area. So one could stretch for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. Okay. Now, if you look at the picture, with direct current, the power goes only one way. You cut off the power in one of the spots, the power is not getting back to the battery. Okay. But if you look at the other side for AC, power goes one way and the other. So if power gets cut off in one way, it can still go to the light bulb and return to the battery because it's going both ways. Okay. Now, in Niagara Falls, they wanted a hydroelectric plant. They basically say, hey, we got all this water falling off on this waterfall. We might as well use that power to create electricity for our people. Problem was, they didn't know if they wanted AC or DC. Luckily for them, in 1893, there was a World Fair in Chicago, and the World Fair wanted electricity. So they said, okay, Tesla and Edison, tell us how much would it be for you to install lights in this area? Tesla's company said we can do it for $554,000. Edison's company said we can do it for $1.7 million. Yeah. So, I mean, Tesla's company beat them by over $1 million. $1 million cheaper. So they got the bid. Problem was, their light bulbs that they used were the ones from Edison's company. And Edison said, we're not selling you any light bulbs. and we're not going to sell anyone who's going to sell it to you. We're not going to sell them light bulbs. So Tesla had to create their own light bulbs. Um, if you look at the picture right there, let me move this little camera thing. So if you look at all the area where there's lights, believe it or not, there's people around there. And they had like boxes of light bulbs. So when one light bulb went out, they took it off, put a new one in, boom. They basically did that all night. Because again, they wanted people to look around going, oh my God, this is amazing. This is beautiful. Because if you had light bulbs going off here, 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 it's just going to look nasty. And that's not what Tesla wanted. But people were amazed. They loved it. So Niagara Falls said, okay, Tesla, we're giving your company the contract, which is great. Problem was, because they put their bid so low, they didn't have a lot of money to complete the project. So Westinghouse had a contract with Tesla saying every time there was a wattage of power used, Tesla would get paid. Anytime they used the transformers and things like that, Tesla would get paid. So Tesla was making quite a bit of money. And now Westinghouse is telling them, dude, I can't pay you. We underbidded so much. We can't even get this project for Niagara Falls going. Tesla then tells him, wait, hold on, hold on. He grabs his contract that says you have to pay me for all this stuff, things like that, for every time you use my patents. He tore that contract up. So the Westinghouse didn't have to pay him for any of it. And that's what he wanted. He told them, don't lose this project. So Westinghouse is like, all right, I won't. Problem was, Edison General Electric, which was led by J.P. Morgan, kept putting Westinghouse in debt by threatening to sue them, taking them to court for patent infringements, saying, "Oh no, you use your AC patents for your generator for this and that. That came from us." So they took them to court. Guys, lawyers are expensive, and J.P. Morgan again has so much money. It was nothing to him. Westinghouse didn't have that much, and eventually he bled him dry. Got to the point where Westinghouse had to sell his whole company to J.P. Morgan. And when he sold the company, he sold J.P. Morgan the rights to Tesla's patents. That's how he got it. That's how J.P. Morgan was able to get Tesla's patents. He basically bought it from Westinghouse for dirt cheap. Now, Edison's sitting happy when he hears about this. He's like, yes, yes, I won. Yeah, that's right. DC power rules. AC power sucks. Then JP Morgan tells basically Edison, oh, and since you're in a celebrating mood, um, yeah, I am taking over your company now. I own over 51% of the company, meaning I'm the owner. And the first thing I'm going to do now is change the name of the company. It's no longer Edison General Electric. It's just going to be not named General Electric, which is still around today. Some of you guys might have refrigerators, microwaves, washer and dryers that say like GE on it. That's General Electric. Now, when asked, okay, well, now that you have both AC and DC power, which one are we going to use? JP Morgan goes, AC power. AC power is the better one. It's the best. And that's still the one we use today. So anytime you plug in your your iPhone charger or whatever for your TV, you are using AC power. Okay. Now, there's two things that Tesla demonstrated. One was the radio communication. He did this 2 years before Marconi, who Marconi is credited with inventing the radio. Actually, it was Tesla. Tesla was able to show, hey, you can communicate to somebody miles away without wires through this thing called radio waves. Again, wireless. The other thing he demonstrated was at Madison Square Garden, he got a toy boat and demonstrated how he could control it through this little device wirelessly, and people were amazed by it. Some people thought that, oh, there's somebody in the water moving it left, right, and forward, backwards, things like that. But in reality, it was like, no, he actually had a little kind of radio handle device, and just like the ones we have today, where you turn left, right, things for drones, in your little speed, little cars, your nephew's little car, same thing. He did that back in the 1890s. Sad thing happened in 1895. His lab burned down. Now, in his lab, he had all his notebooks, all his designs, all his drawings, everything, his equipment, everything he had basically gathered up for his whole life was gone. Okay. Now, in 1900, he got some financial support from J.P. Morgan because he wanted to start this global communication network, kind of like internet. Okay, and he said this will be wireless too. And it was at Warden's Cliff, Long Island. Here's the thing, Tesla actually ran out of money. He went to JP Morgan and said, hey, I ran out of money. I need more. And Morgan says no. What Tesla was trying to do in reality was create a huge Tesla coil that could shoot electricity out everywhere. He wanted to put these stations mathematically here, 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 all over the country to give off free electricity. So imagine just walking down the road and all of a sudden you look at your phone and it's charging. Things like that. He wanted to do that. That's what it was for. But a lot of people kind of speculated that the tower thing he was creating was a secret death ray machine. Again, because of Tesla and who he was and his mystery, some people thought it was a death ray. It was not a death ray. Now, Tesla spent basically the rest of his life in his New York hotel working on inventions, but the thing is, his mental health started to fade. And he basically spent the last several years of his life feeding pigeons, and he said at one point that he could talk to them. Was that his mental health declining, or could he actually do it? With Tesla, and you can't say the guy can't do something, because he did things that were impossible back then. Okay, so anytime you have something wireless, your earbuds, your Bluetooth, your remote control, you have the little pad you put your phone on to charge, anything wireless, that's Tesla. All right, now on the back of your paper, you're going to see several lines, and it's going to say like Einstein notes. What you're going to do is watch any documentary on Albert Einstein that's over 45 minutes long. Do you have to watch all 45 minutes? No. No. Okay? You don't. I just want you to watch a full-length video, because if you watch those 3-minute video, you're supposed to fill up that whole thing with notes. Okay? On those 3-minute videos, you're not going to get able to get notes on those. You're going to have to watch like 3 or 4 of them, and they're going to have the same information for each one. But if you watch a full-length video, you're going to have different notes and things like that. Okay, so watch one. I would suggest watching the History Channel one. It's called, just put Albert Einstein documentary History Channel, and it'll be like the first one on top or second one. That one does a really good job talking about his life and things like that, so I would go with that one. Okay, but once you finish that, that's the end of this lesson. So hopefully you had a good time. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something new. You guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you later, okay?